skies, and on every occasion that you do or don't smile.
So welcome to Sensible Secondhand Reviews, the show where we take a look at cars that you can buy in reasonable condition between £1,000 and £5,000, and we do things in a very straightforward manner. This is the 2017 Vauxhall Meriva 1.4 Tech Line. What you don't say these days, particularly with high second-hand car prices, you could buy this exact car for £5,000, but definitely because Merivas came out in 2010, you can certainly pick, you know, a lower mileage, slightly older one of these up for under £5,000 now. So it's probably one of the most sensible second-hand cars you can buy at the moment, hence the corduroy jacket. So the Vauxhall Meriva B, which is the second generation of Meriva, was introduced in 2010. It ran until 2017 when it was replaced by the Crossled X, but has nothing whatsoever to do with this, nothing at all. It's all Peugeot Citroën engineering, whereas this is the old General Motors type stuff. Because this car has such low mileage, it feels really fresh. The gearbox, and particularly in clutch, feel like new. Not all of them obviously on the used market will feel like this, but it's nice to have that feeling. The engines available in a Meriva B were all family zero based. 1.4 in this car develops 99 horsepower. It was used in a lot of other Vauxhall, Opel and General Motors products over the course of a number of years. There are also two turbo versions of this engine with 120 or 140 brake horsepower. There are also some diesels, but as we've been saying from the very first video on this channel 3 years ago, due to controversial government legislation and many other factors, we don't talk about diesels on this channel. I was expecting this non-turbo car to feel a little bit underpowered, but actually it's okay. It actually feels, for some reason, a bit more sprightly than it does in an Astra H, which I would assume is a heavier car than this. I imagine on something like the motorway or some country roads you might want to go for one of the turbo models, but this one's okay. The only thing to be aware of with this is that it only has a 5-speed gearbox. I think the turbo models came with a 6-speed. The trim levels are incredibly confusing in a Meriva as they were in the Astra and Corsa, but there's something like Active Limited Edition, Club, Energy, Excite Limited Edition, Exclusive with no E on the end, which is really stupid. I don't know why they did that. Exclusive Limited Edition, Expression, S, SE, Tech Line, and then the Life. I've always thought that Vauxhall Meriva Life or something sounds a bit weird. The upper trim levels were things like the Tech Line and the SE. The SE had things like the glass roof that you could get. The Exclusive and the SE had the flex rail system of storage, which was sort of down here in the centre console. This car doesn't have anything like that, but it depends really if that's an important thing for you or not. The ride is exceptionally good in this car. It feels very much like, I don't know, was it River 45 or something like that? The ride quality is extremely good. It's not really designed for sporty driving. I would have thought there's high driving position and a tall body, but really families don't want their children to be sick when they're going around corners and things. So compared with a lot of modern cars, particularly the SUVs, which are now the default choice for families as opposed to these mini MPVs, having a sort of softer ride like this is probably better. 0 to 60 in this car, I imagine, is something like 13 seconds. There's nothing extraordinary. The handling's actually quite responsive. It's quite good. The steering, it has a lot more weight to it than I thought it might, and you know, that's good. I'm actually really impressed by this car. I'm I'm really quite impressed. So we've come to this rather autumnal looking car park. You can tell it's November now with all these leaves on the ground. This being an incredibly late Meriva, it's one of the last ones actually, and it was, I think, supplied directly by Vauxhall to Motability originally. Has a different front end. Being the tech line, it has some nicely sort of high technology features, but also it's got some things that are missing, which is really strange. I'll explain a bit more about that later. Typical styling from the European branch General Motors at this time, Vauxhall and Opel. I do like these wheels, they're rather nice. 17 inches actually, it's quite big for Vauxhall of the time. It's actually got front and rear parking sensors on this tech line model. I remember that boot release sound from my Chevy Cruze. Boot's about 400 litres. It really depends on some things. There's this boot liner in here, which I'm not going to fiddle too much with. I don't think we're going to find too much under here. I think these just came with a can of sealant actually in them, rather than the sort of normal spare that a lot of you would actually like to see, and that includes me. It's remarkably good condition actually, this one is. Adam's kept it very, very well. Of course, the pièce de résistance of the Meriva B is the flex doors. And as you can see, you can open the rear door actually without opening the front door. That's one of the sort of advantages of this, and that, you know, differentiates it out from something like a Mazda RX-8. I don't know why I'm mentioning a Mazda RX-8 in the same breath as a Meriva, but just because that has, you know, similar rear doors, not because it's a rival or anything. Just move those out of the way. Even a handle in here for getting in. Yes, good idea to have these mats in here. Now, just close the doors because it's a bit cold and nippy out there. We've got electric rear windows in this car. Excellent. And got the trays. There we go. They actually move up and down quite nicely. And mat pockets. That would be where the flex rail system is if this was car's a different spec. It was only, I believe, available on the exclusive and the SE models. I think it might even be an option on them. We can, though, with this handle here, move the rear seat forward and back. It's just quite stiff, so you can tell if this car's not been used very much. And there's the pull for sort of tumbling the seat forward. I won't actually do that because it's just me, you know, filming this. It's more difficult if you're on your own, but there we go. Green light in there as well to so say you can open the door. I think that's to do with the fact that you can't open the door unless you're doing less than 2 miles an hour, which is, it sounds stupid, but that's the case. So we've got a light here as well. We've got individual lights for the rear passengers. That's really good. I think Mercedes is the last manufacturer to make a sort of mini MPV type car like this. No one else does anymore. It's just remarkably spacious in here. These are actually, I think, individual seats as well. Well, this is really an armrest that you can sort of take out. The seats are very comfortable. There's just no wear on this car at all. I thought the door was going to open normally then, which of course it hasn't. But yeah, the hip point in here is really good. If you've got anyone who has mobility issues or something like that, then that's going to be fantastic. Just throw the mission documents in the front so when we go around, we're in the right place. Yeah, it's all very smart. A big door bin in the back. Typical Opel Vauxhall switches from the period as well. And if we get in the front, you can just tell straight away it's a Vauxhall from the mid-2010s. There we go. Oh, very, very low mileage in this. Really low. But we've got things like a heated steering wheel, heated seats, multi-stage. But this centre console is straight out of an Astra J, and you can just tell it is an absolute and utter button fest. One of the reasons they started to introduce touchscreens on cars is because people said they didn't like the buttons, and yet now people say, oh, give us the buttons back. So to be honest, it's probably better to have the buttons than not, but this is quite confusing. You do get used to this. The Chevy Cruze I had 2 of those, had a similar sort of layout in terms of the buttons. Yeah, you get used to it, but you know, there we go. Because this is a tech line, we've also got cruise control, which is brilliant. It's only a 5-speaker. This isn't the turbo version of the 1.4. This is the normally aspirated one. Electronic handbrake. I'm not a fan of electronic handbrakes, viewers, I'm afraid, and most of you, I think, who watch these videos don't tend to like them either, so that might be an issue. Oh, we've got a gun holder up there as well. Let's just see if we can get these into the glove box, my secret mission documents. No. Where am I going to put these then? I'll have to put them down there. There we go, that'll do. So I'll just make sure we're not in gear. Electronic handbrake should be on, so if we just turn that, there we go. I'll show you this big screen that these cars came with. Now you could get Vauxhall's IntelliLink sat-nav system in this car as well. The gauges are exactly the same as on the Astra J or my Chevy Cruze. They work in exactly the same way. It's quite strange. So we turn that a bit further. There we go. You see, it shows you on here where the airflow is. So if I were to just press that button there, for example, it shows that it's adjusts it, and you know, it's not too bad in comparison with a lot of more modern cars. And there's lots of different things you can see here on the menu. See, it shows you the sort of MPG, miles per hour. There's the fuel range, about 40 miles per gallon. That's what I'd expect, really, one of these. And I think menu does sort of even more. There we go. I think that's the oil percentage, life left and things. Bluetooth on this as well. Hands-free. Sort of voice commands and things, which I don't never use in a car personally, but there we go. I don't think we've got automatic lights and wipers. I think they're just normal manual ones, and the familiar looking switch there, and that switch, and these switches, all very familiar to people who've driven Opels and Vauxhalls of this era. But it's a funny dash. It's sort of soft touch as well, which is quite nice. It's amazing that actually, I've always thought Vauxhalls are quite decent cars for the money. They just always suffer from really heavy depreciation, which tends to be the biggest problem with them, actually, rather than them being particularly bad. Because I think honestly they're pretty good. I've sourced a lot of Vauxhalls for clients, particularly used ones, and back in the day when second-hand car prices weren't so crazy, it was a really sort of good option for a lot of people. Right, let's just pause a second here, then we'll go and have a look at the engine. There's actually a fair amount of evidence under here that this is very similar to the Corsa D and Corsa E. It's the same 1.4 Family Zero engine that was in an awful lot of cars, and the Corsa E itself until I think 2019 had this 1.4 engine, in this case developing 99 horsepower. The other 2 petrol engines in the Meriva B were also based on this, but with a turbocharger. Same old coolant reservoir, same oil filler cap as an Astra H, and actually the car that we had on Tweed Jacket Reviews back in I think it was October 2019, so 2 years ago, the Astra H, which belongs to my father-in-law, he still got it and looks very familiar on here. Some things have been moved around because there's not as much space under here as there would be in something like an Astra H, but it's pretty much the same thing. One thing you do have to watch on these engines, apart from the oil pressure switch, which is a £3 part, but confer on the engine management light, is the timing chains sometimes actually do give up, and there's no scheduled replacement interval for them. It tends to happen on quite high mileage Family Zero engines, but it's just something to be aware. I mean, this car's only done about 7,000 miles, so that's not really going to happen for quite some time. But you have to make sure that the oil is changed frequently and doesn't run too low, because that doesn't do anything good for timing chains at all. Right, I think it's time to go for another drive. Wouldn't be Sensible Secondhand Reviews without a mountain in the way. It's just the way that it goes on this channel. I'm quite impressed by this car. I mean, I've looked at these before but never driven one, and it really does come quite highly recommended. But because of the depreciation that Vauxhalls have suffered from for a number of years, they're really quite affordable, and if you get a nice one, you know, they're pretty good. One of the things I think that a lot of people who aren't even really into cars will appreciate, and you know, if you're looking at this kind of car, you're probably maybe not too much of an enthusiast, because it's going to be, you need a type of car like this rather than you want a type of car like this, is the way it's so easy to drive. This car's got all-round parking sensors, so it's easy to park. Visibility is quite good. It's really good for up to five people. If they're, you know, small in the back, and yeah, it's easy to get in and out, nice to drive, relatively inexpensive. It's really something that I think is very much worth considering. I think you have to watch some of the reliability on the 1.4 turbos. I don't think those are as reliable as this normally aspirated one, but apart from that, I can't really think of major disadvantages to these. I have seen interiors not wear particularly well on Vauxhalls of this age, but that's the case I think with a lot of makes of car. So there we are, not perhaps too much of a surprise with the conclusion, but I do like this even more than I thought I would. So viewers, the Vauxhall Meriva B, available at temptingly low prices, sort of car that doesn't really exist anymore. It's actually, I think, a really good option if you have children, elderly relatives, or you just like a very versatile car that's quite cheap to run and has very, very, very good parts availability. Because this is just essentially something like a cross between an Insignia, an Astra, and a Corsa in a mini MPV body, then this could be a really good option. I don't think it's for anyone, and I think personally I might go for one of those turbocharged engines, although they don't have the best reputation for reliability. I think possibly that's what I would prefer. And the trim structure of this car is just insanely complicated. But apart from that, I think this is a pretty good option. The lower trim levels don't feel particularly well equipped, and particularly, you know, ones that have a plastic steering wheel and not this nice leather one. But if you get the engine and trim combination of these right, and you go for one that's been very well cared for, I don't see why this couldn't be a very good option, particularly for a family car. Anyway, thank you ever so much indeed once again for watching this episode of Sensible Secondhand Reviews. Please don't forget to like this video, to leave a comment below, and we'll be back soon for another episode of real world car reviewing.